Hi, I'm Joanne, and I'm a PhD student in the Fluid Interfaces group at the MIT Media Lab. I'm presenting the work Picture the Audience, Exploring Private AR Face Filters for Online Public Speaking. How do you feel when you have to give a presentation to a large group of people? If you'd say nervous, you're definitely not alone. Public speaking is one of the most common lifetime fears. You might have heard the advice before to picture your audience in your mind's eye in a slightly different light in order to ease your anxiety. For example, a former US president was said to have imagined his audience having holes in their socks to help him out. However, in a time where it's common to give speeches or presentations during online video calls, we'd question, what if we can use AR filters to literally change what people are seeing? In this paper, we investigate the possibility for AR face filters to reduce public speaking anxiety. Prior works have tried a number of different approaches to tackle this issue. For example, virtual reality has been used as a form of exposure therapy, and other researchers have looked at introducing agents as co-presenters or as friendly audience members or even coaches when entering the situation to help people out. Another relevant stream of research looks into virtual embodiment illusions and also changes to people's camera streams and their facial features. What we note is that while these can help improve people's feelings or emotions during certain tasks, researchers have not yet looked at how it's being used for public speaking anxiety. To tackle this topic, we took on a two-phase investigation. Firstly, we issued a general public survey because we wanted to understand overall how accepting would people be of having such a feature, and we collected 100 responses. In a part 2, we conducted a pilot study. We created a custom application where people can use AR face filters, and we wanted to understand what is the actual practical utility of having such a feature. From the survey, we took away a number of key thoughts. One important question that we had was how comfortable would people be in applying filters either to themselves or to other people in a private manner? And by private, we explained that only the speaker would be able to see the effects, whereas anyone on the call who wasn't them would not be able to. Unsurprisingly, people were most comfortable with applying filters on themselves, but we did note that there was not a strong opposition to the idea of applying filters on others across the board. Given that we're looking at AR filters, we noted that there are so many different types. So we also wanted to isolate what are the most promising categories of filters to look at. Interestingly, people's responses indicated that filters that make people look less realistic, non-human, or which can change their facial expressions were a promising avenue. We also collected a number of different comments regarding the potential benefits people could see in having this feature and also concerns. And one very common concern was that it could be used for bullying and harassment. And so we were mindful in carrying that forward into our future investigation. We also conducted a pilot study. We invited 16 individuals who self-identified as having a fear of public speaking to try out our custom web application. In this application, they could join a virtual meeting room, and they can select from a menu what filters would be applied. Depending on the condition with which they were randomly sorted into, their filter selection would change this person's appearance. So it would either change their own appearance or the appearance of others. We incorporated 14 different filter types as informed from our prior survey, and we put them into these 5 categories. As part of the pilot study, we had people step through a number of different tasks. So first they answered a demographic survey. Then they were asked to explore this application and try out each of the filters that were available. We also took the opportunity to show them that their filter selection would only be privately viewable and not viewable to the study coordinator or to anyone else. We then asked them to prepare a speech, and when they were ready, We had them deliver this speech within the application to 5 virtual audience members. At the end, we asked them to complete an exit survey, and we also interviewed them to understand their experience. This is the filters in action. So here in the on-self condition, you can see that this person's selection is changing her own appearance. And conversely, you can see what it looks like if they were in the on others condition. So here her selections are changing how everyone else appears on the call, and we note that in the bottom left-hand corner, this is an example of what other people would see. So essentially, they would not be able to see these effects. From the pilot study, we learned a number of different things. One thing we noted was that people tended to have higher ratings for the on others condition in terms of how it impacted their feelings. So they reported lower levels of anxiety and fear, and they also felt more confident and felt it was easier to deliver their speech with these filters applied to other people. We also noted that people tended to rate the on others condition to be more pleasant and fun to use than the participants who experienced the on self condition. What was very interesting is we observed that people used a very diverse range of strategies for leveraging AR filters, and we clustered them into 3 categories. So some people were concerned with changing the relationship they had with their audience. And for example, some filters such as the dog filter had people feeling like the audience was more friendly and more welcoming, putting them at ease. Conversely, some people wanted to use the AR filters to create a more distancing effect. And for example, the poster AR filter effect helped people to make the audience seem more abstract and therefore less intimidating. For the on-self condition, we also noticed divergent strategies. Some people wanted to use it to kind of divert their self-focus and disguise themselves despite it being a private filter effect. And on the other hand, some people wanted to convince themselves that they were very capable for the task. And so applying something like these glasses gave one participant the confidence that she could actually deliver her speech. Others wanted to manipulate the situation. For example, they used filters to inject humor and to take the situation less seriously with the Stallone filter. And others mentioned that they wanted to use it to minimize distractions and help them focus on the task at hand. Over the course of the interviews, we noticed that a number of other factors would come up, and we summarized that in our paper. One very interesting insight was that a subset of our participants were adamant that they wanted to see their audience clearly in their reactions, whereas another subset wanted to block out their view of the audience completely. And looking at their anxiety scores based off of the subjective units of distress scale, we noticed that the highly anxious individuals were the ones who wanted to shield themselves from seeing others. And this is very interesting as it suggests that how invasive a filter should be might scale with their degree of anxiety. Lastly, we want to emphasize that there are a number of ethical considerations that should be taken into account. One is that the software should be transparent if this feature of applying filters privately is available. 2, we stress that people find consent to be extremely important. So consent should be sought after, and we recommend that that's done prior to anyone engaging on the platform. There should also be mechanisms in place to help people to negotiate what filters can be applied to themselves or others and in what meeting situations. And overall, we want that these environments are very respectful, but determining what is acceptable and what isn't requires an ever-evolving discourse between the platform creators and the users to ensure that it's not used maliciously. In conclusion, we explored private AR face filters to reduce public speaking anxiety, and we investigated it within 2 modes, an on-self and an on-others perspective. We noticed that people use a variety of different strategies depending on their preferences and their levels of anxiety. And overall, in order to make use of such a feature, we recommend that people design it carefully for its ethical and respectful use. Thank you.